50 bone-chilling deep wood stories that haunt you in the rain, never told horror adventures. The rain fell like 1,000 tiny daggers, each drop slicing through the heavy forest air, sending shivers down your spine. It whispered secrets long buried, stories no one dared to tell. In these deep woods, shadows twisted into sinister shapes, and the darkness held a potent mix of fear and curiosity. Something was lurking just beyond the vision. Every rustle of leaves echoed the stories that resided in the hearts of the brave, or perhaps the foolish, who dared to roam these haunted paths. There was talk of a ghostly figure, a woman said to roam the woods, with a face as pale as the moon. They claimed she cried for her lost love, echoing through the trees like a haunting melody that made the bravest hearts quake. Style of dress? A wedding gown stained deep with mud and secrets, dragging behind her as she drifted through the underbrush, a sad reminder that love can sometimes turn cruel, or that death itself has no loyalty to the living. They said on stormy nights, you could hear her wailing blend with the wind, stealing the breath right from your lungs. And then, there were the whispers of the creatures that came alive when the rain fell. They weren't the usual suspects you'd read about in fairy tales. No, these were creatures born from nightmares. Long, twisted limbs with gnarled claws that scraped the bark of trees, hollow eyes that glowed just enough to chill your blood. Some claimed to have seen them gazing from a distance, their laughter sounding like breaking glass, a sound that made every hair on your neck stand straight up. And the legends, oh, the legends that swirled like fog around campfires. A vanished group of hikers, leaving nothing but the faintest traces behind a broken watch, a crumpled map, and a scream that seemed to melt into the shadows. Some said if you listened carefully while wandering the trails, you'd hear their voices calling, begging for help from the depths of the woods. But everyone knew the best choice was to keep moving, to run before the trees decided to keep you for good. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. But as the storm raged on, one single question burned in everyone's mind. Could it be true that the woods were alive, hungry for stories, for souls? With each thunder crack, the deep woods seemed to tighten their grip, ready to draw in the next curious adventurer. What awaited beyond weighed heavily on the heart, as those who had stumbled through had often never returned. And then, amidst it all, a new whisper stirred, breaking through the rain, a child's laughter piercing the suffocating gloom. But there were no children in these woods, not anymore. What did it mean? What lay ahead? That is a question we all know is better left unasked. The laughter echoed again, a tinkling sound that seemed to dance on the raindrops, pulling at the edges of sanity. It slipped through the trees, weaving its way into consciousness like a dark ribbon. Just a trick of the storm, they assured themselves. But it held an unsettling allure, a call that demanded attention even as dread crept up their spines. Jess trembled as she clutched her flashlight, its beam slicing through the darkness. She had come into these woods to unwind, a foolish decision mingled with an adventurous heart. The weather had turned, trapping her beneath a sky swollen with unrelenting rain and swirling clouds. Ignoring the weight of legends and warnings of the unseen, the thrill had drugged her senses into a false sense of security. Yet now, each step felt filled with tension. She could almost hear the whispers of the lost hikers, warning her to turn back, faint echoes carried on the wind, lost amongst the trees. She gulped, glancing over her shoulder, half expecting to see the wedding gown fluttering behind her, glimmering like a ghost in the shadows. With each flash of lightning, the forest morphed into a different realm. Shadows loomed large, stretching their skeletal limbs, every bolt painting monstrous figures on the canvas of night. She had read the stories flickering like candles, the lost souls, vengeful spirits, and creatures waiting to ensnare anyone foolish enough to linger. The rain intensified, hammering against the ground, creating a chaotic symphony of drumming water that drowned out her resolve. Then, out of the silence, came that laughter again, soft, gentle. It twirled around her, wrapping like fog around her legs, tugging her deeper into the woods. Is someone there? Her own voice felt strange amidst the pulse of nature, barely breaking through. And no answer came. Just that laugh that now howled like a banshee, all false innocence, mocking her very soul. Instinct kicked in. The night was devouring her sanity. She turned, aiming her flashlight back, desperate to escape, but the path she had taken was no longer visible. In place of the familiar trail stood a wall of trees, limbs intertwined like fingers stretching across time. Panic surged through her veins. This isn't real. It can't be real, she shouted, her breath quickening as the laughter crescendoed, tearing at her heart. Suddenly, her flashlight flickered. The beam waned, casting erratic shadows on the ground. Jess's stomach twisted. No, no, no. Not now. The haunting laughter folded itself into the deepening mist, coaxing her spirit to falter. Then, out of the chaos, she spotted a small figure, half hidden behind a tree, illuminated momentarily by a crack of lightning. It was a girl, no more than 7. A tangled mass of hair framed her cherubic face as she peered at Jess with wide, innocent eyes. "Help me," the child whispered, yet there was something chilling about her tone, as though she was not just beckoning, but plucking at a dark string of the unseen. Instinct screamed at Jess to run, to flee from the girl's spectral presence. But the child's eyes shimmered like polished stones, melting away Jess's fear for just a fraction of a second. Please, the word hung in the air, thick as fog, laden with tension. What if this was the key to the lost hikers? Would she help this girl, or would she too be ensnared by the wood's wicked grip? The storm intensified, a harbinger of chaos, forcing her to make a decision. A choice weighed against the gravity of the stories that whispered around her. What awaited her in the embrace of the darkness? And just then, as Jess took a step forward, the wood shifted, and she heard the wailing, a sound so utterly chilling, so profoundly hollow, it could only mean one thing. The forest was alive, and it was craving more. What dark fate awaited her as she ventured deeper down the rabbit hole? The moment Jess stepped closer to the girl, the laughter fell silent. The forest held its breath, as if awaiting her next move. The child's eyes locked onto hers, glistening with an unnatural light, and Jess felt a shiver race down her spine. "What is your name?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Ava," the girl replied, her voice like a breeze dancing through dry leaves. It sent a wave of unease rippling through Jess. Something was wrong. Shouldn't a lost child be terrified? Instead, Ava stood there, unperturbed by the storm, the chaos swirling around. Just beyond her, the woods spoke a language filled with whispers, rustling leaves, and ominous creaks. "Where is your family?" Jess questioned, desperation lacing her words. She clutched the flashlight tighter, the faint beam flickering like her hope. "They're here, but they don't see me," Ava said softly, her gaze drifting past Jess. "They don't care. Can you help me?" Fight or flight surged inside Jess like wildfire. She hesitated, wavering at the crossroads of compassion and fear. Hadn't the stories warned about doling out kindness in this cursed place? But looking at Ava, so fragile and lost, softened her heart for a heartbeat longer. Suddenly, the laughter erupted again, cascading through the trees, like the echoes of 1,000 voices, surrounding them. Panic clawed at Jess's throat, and she spun around, ready to flee. But before she could move, Ava reached out, her tiny hand brushing against Jess's arm. "It's more fun if you stay," the girl whispered, her voice suddenly stronger, more insistent. The warmth of the child's touch sent a surprising comfort through Jess, but it was marred by a chill that wrapped around her stomach. "I can't stay. I need to find my way out," she shouted, battling the spell of the forest, trying to break free from the tightening grip on her mind. The laughter intensified, a cacophony of mirthful taunts that seemed to penetrate the very fabric of her being. "Please! They need me. I need you," Ava pleaded, her face morphing momentarily as shadows danced across her features. The sky cracked with lightning again, illuminating a face twisted in desperation. Realization hit Jess like a punch. This was an innocent child. She was just a lure, drawing Jess deeper into this nightmare. With a surge of adrenaline, Jess tore her arm away and took several steps back. "No!" she cried, fury replacing fear. She turned to run, the flashlight shaking in her grip, the beam cutting through the dark chaos like a sword. But every direction looked the same, trees towering and swaying as if alive. The storm, now a monstrous beast, thrashed the branches above her, and the haunting laughter morphed into anguished wails, rising and falling like a sorrowful symphony. "Help me!" Ava's voice sliced through the storm again. The urgency pierced her heart. Something deep within Jess forced her to stop, to look back. The girl stood alone, the shadows swirling around her, and Jess felt an insufferable weight in her chest. Wasn't this what she had come looking for? The thrill of the adventure? Jess, the girl whispered, that single name riding on the wind, familiar yet eerie. It felt as if the woods whispered her name, threatening to reveal dark secrets she couldn't comprehend. Every muscle in Jess screamed to run, but she hesitated, feeling drawn to the child and the sinister unknown. As the laughter crescendoed into a roar, Jess's mind reeled with confusion, suspended between dread and an overwhelming urge to save the girl. Then, as Jess stood frozen in the storm, dark figures began to emerge from the shadows, moving towards them. Each draped in mist, faces obscured, yet eyes watched her closely, hungry and expectant. One step forward could decide her fate. What would she choose? Can a single decision change everything? Or would she too become another lost whisper in the darkness? What awaited her as the storm closed in? Fear coursed through Jess like a live wire. The shadows around her flickered with life, twisting and turning, their shapes drawing nearer, manifesting into something more than just darkness. She could feel their hungry eyes pierce through her defenses, digging into her very soul. "Ava!" she called, battling against the surge of panic. Would the girl help her understand? Was there more to consider than this immediate instinct to escape? But Ava didn't respond. Instead, she stood still, her expression morphing into something cold. The light in her eyes dimmed, replaced by a depth of sadness that seemed to stretch infinitely. Jess felt her heart clench. "Help me!" Ava cried, and though her words felt genuine, they tasted sour on Jess's tongue. In an instant, the figures swarmed closer, moving with a purpose that made Jess's breath hitch. They weren't just shadows. They wore the echoes of voices and secrets, clingers to the unimaginable horrors of the woods. Each step left a whirl of damp earth, revealing faces painted taut with despair and hunger. And then she saw it, a gnarled hand stretching toward her, reaching with impossibly long fingers that beckoned her into the wood's abyss. "Join us, become part of the forest," it whispered, the voice a mixture of seduction and threat. Jess's mind screamed for her to run, yet she felt rooted in place, the forest's grip around her mind tighter than before. The laughter, now sinister and mocking, crescendoed, merging with the drumming rain as if the forest itself was laughing at her desperation. Suddenly, she was struck by a memory, a childhood lesson about the importance of helping others, about feeling for those lost in darkness. It tugged at her heart, pulling her close to Ava. But now, Doubt clouded her judgment. Which voice was the truth? Ava or the growing storm around them? No! Jess shouted, shaking her head as if to clear thoughts that were not hers. I can't. I want to be another lost soul here. With a sudden burst of resolve, she turned on her heel, bolting into the chaos. Her heart pounded, each beat a frantic reminder that time was running out. The flashlight flickered, casting frantic beams of light that jostled the shadows, banging against the trees with a defiance that mirrored her spirit. As she ran, the sounds of the forest transformed, the laughter morphed into enraged shrieks, angered by her defiance. Branches reached for her with claw-like grips, tugging at her clothing, urging her back. "Help me!" The plea echoed, but this time it was no longer from Ava. It was a symphony of voices that sent a chill through her bones. Panicking, Jess leapt forward, pushing through the thick underbrush that clawed at her, every movement becoming a desperate fight for freedom. But the woods seemed intent on holding her captive. The darkness loomed heavy, and just when Jess thought she could escape, she froze. A piercing truth dropped like a weight in her stomach. She had left Ava behind. Just the voice wrapped tightly around her. The shadows seemed to coalesce into one, revealing what looked like a human form, standing with strength drawn from the darkness itself. It bore the same striking features as Ava, but twisted into something grotesque, a manifestation of pain and anger. "Why did you run?" it asked, its voice like silk tainted with venom. Time hung suspended. Jess's heart thundered as she faced the creature, the harbinger of lost souls, the embodiment of everything she feared and yet felt drawn to. The fate of her soul rested in this moment. Could she turn back? Or would she forsake her freedom for a child still lost? The storm roared in response, a fitting backdrop to the clash of choices twinkling in the lightning above. And then, just as the world stopped, it lunged. Jess barely had time to scream. Jess stumbled back as the creature lunged, the air electrified with menace. Its eyes burned with a crimson glow, deep, like the heart of a wildfire, wild and consuming. She stumbled, barely catching herself, the ground beneath her shifting like a living thing, grieving under her feet. "Come back!" The voice no longer belonged to Ava. It twisted into a cacophony of haunting echoes. "You think you can just run? You're one of us now." Each word was a cold dagger, slicing through her resolve. The new figure loomed closer, its form shifting, blurring the lines between human and shadow. Jess felt the darkness clawing at her skin, pulling her back toward the depths of despair. She had escaped, but in that flight, had she merely exchanged one captivity for another? "Help me!" she cried, desperation spilling from her lips. The wind howled in response, almost mocking her plea, ripping at the branches that hung like anguished arms above her. The creature chuckled softly, a sound that reverberated like wind chimes in a storm. "Help? You're too far gone for help. We are here to guide you, to show you what true power feels like." It extended a hand, twisted fingers beckoning her, stained with a darkness that seemed alive. Jess's heart raced, a visceral pounding that pulsed with every breath. She glanced back towards the path she had fled. The fading glow of her flashlight illuminated the void, a pathway lined with empty eyes and mournful sighs. Could she even go back now? "No!" she shouted, summoning the last vestiges of her courage. "I refuse to be part of this." She turned on her heel again, racing back the way she had come, though the forest seemed alive with anger. The branches snapped and whipped at her as she plowed forward, their growth unnatural, forces pulling her in with cruel insistence. Dark laughter echoed around her. She was not the only one haunted by the woods. As she broke free from the thickest vines, the storm surged. Thunder cracked overhead, drowning out the sinister whispers. She spotted a flicker of movement to her left. Was that Ava? A flash of hope ignited in her chest. Maybe the girl was still there, still calling for her. Jess! It was her name, carved into the night like a beacon. You have to return. You don't know what year the ghostly form flashed near a cluster of trees, barely in her line of sight. Jess felt an overpowering pull in that direction. Forgetting her recent fears, she pushed forth, almost entranced. But the creature was relentless, shadowing her closely. "Don't fall for it, Jess. It's a trap," it rasped, its voice dripped with desperation, morphing now into something familiar, something like her own. "You won't find salvation there." Jess hesitated, her heart pounding in her ears, pulling her in opposite directions, Ava or the shadow. Confusion gripped her like a vice, tightening until she couldn't breathe. Just then, a piercing shriek tore through the storm, a sound that paralyzed her instinct to choose. It wasn't human, it was primal, a cry of anguish that reverberated deep within her bones. "Jess! Help!" A collision of fear and instinct surged within her, the ground beneath her feet trembling as she stood at the crossroads of reality and nightmare. She could barely process the choice before her. Jamming her fists against her ears, she screamed, "What do I do?" Silence fell abruptly, the wind stilling as if the forest hung on her every word, waiting. And then, the shadows whispered back. The shadows coiled around her, each whisper a tendril of darkness that snaked into her mind. "You know what you must do," they chimed, their tones a twisted echo of her thoughts. Jess felt the weight of their voices pressing down on her, enveloping her in a shroud of confusion. 1,000 versions of herself echoed in her head, questioning, taunting, pleading. A flicker of light caught her eye, a brief spark darting between the trees deeper in the woods. Ava? Was it a figment of her imagination, or was her friend truly reaching out? With each passing second, the scream from before echoed as if the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for her next move. Nothing felt real anymore, but one thing was certain: the shadows were closing in. "Jess, you need to choose." The shadows blended into one voice, sounding alarmingly familiar, like a dark mirrored version of her own. She struggled against their pull, trying to focus on the flicker, a true lifeline in a sea of darkness. "Wait! You can't get her!" she shouted into the void. But the creature only laughed, a guttural, throat-deep sound that rippled through the air. Such courage! But it won't last long. Tremors coursed through her, a gut-wrenching realization setting in. The shadows were watching her, waiting for her to fail, to tire, to succumb. She couldn't give in, not now. "Stop playing with me!" Jess screamed, her voice barely above a whisper but raw with intensity. With a deep breath, she turned back toward the flickering light, running harder, faster. Each step felt like she was clawing through the shadows themselves, denial pouring into her lungs like smoke. The creature surged forward, blocking her path, its eyes aflame with insatiable hunger. "You'll find no salvation there," it roared, its voice resonating with ancient fury. "No!" she roared back, forcing her legs to keep moving, shocking herself with the strength that surged within her. "Let me through." And just like that, the shadows shifted, revealing a narrow passage as if the forest had sensed her determination. She sprinted toward the light, her heartbeat drowning out the chaos around her. The closer she got, the more she felt a connection, a thread pulling her, tying their fates together. As Jess erupted into a small clearing, the light coalesced into a figure, Ava. She looked ethereal, her face illuminated like a specter against the storm. "Jess! You made it!" Her voice was laced with urgency. But something was wrong. Jess's stomach twisted at the sight of Ava. Her eyes were hollow, shadowed remnants of a fear Jess couldn't comprehend. "Ava, what happened to you?" "It's a trick." "Stay back," her friend warned, but the ensuing chaos around them heightened. The anger of the forest surged against her command, and the whispers grew louder. "No! You've come too far." A surge of rage erupted from the shadows, clashing against Jess, like a tidal wave. She was swept away, thrown to the ground as Ava's form flickered in and out, her face etched with a mix of horror and longing. Just before the darkness engulfed Jess, she felt a spark of hope, a fire, a reminder of her will to fight. Jess! The sound of Ava's desperation rang against the storm. You have to believe in yourself. You can't lose yourself in fear. With everything she had, Jess willed herself up, pushing against the dark tendrils. It was an agonizing ascent. Every inch gained screamed with pain, but she was determined. Fight! The whispers shrieked, shriller now, furious that she resisted. Jess could feel them clawing at her, tugging at her sanity, threatening to snuff out the flame inside her. She opened her mouth to scream, but nothing came out as the shadows formed a swirling cyclone around her. Jess clenched her fists, steeling herself for the onslaught. I won't let you take me. And just as the shadows rushed in to consume her, an explosion of light pierced the dark. The forest recoiled, shrieking in unison. Jess stood firm, heart racing, her breath coming in sharp gasps, but for the first time, she felt a power rising within her. Was it too late? Just then, a figure stepped through the radiant light, revealing itself as a guardian of the woods, eyes wise and bright. You must harness the truth of who you are, Jess. Embrace it. And in that pivotal moment, she knew the true battle was just beginning. The light surged around Jess, illuminating the dark corners of her thoughts. She felt warmth radiating from the guardian, but it was overshadowed by the cold dread still lurking within the forest as shadows. Quickly, Jess! The guardian urged, its voice steady, laced with an urgency that sent a shiver down her spine. You must become what you fear to conquer it. Become what? Jess echoed, confusion clouding her mind. Ava's silent scream, the flickering shadows, everything felt like a fever dream, slipping through her fingers. Embrace your fear. Use it as your strength. The guardian's presence infused her with energy, but also a chilling realization. To fight back, she had to delve deep inside herself. Tentatively, Jess closed her eyes. She reached inside, into the dark recesses of her heart. Memories surged forward, times she felt small, unnoticed, afraid. Each one was like a dagger, a reminder of her vulnerabilities. Let it flow, the guardian instructed. Face your pain and channel it. Jess's breath hitched. The whispers returned, mocking her again, clawing at her resolve. You think you can win? Feel the fear. She grit her teeth, focused. This fear makes me who I am. She shouted against the darkness. Shadows surged forward, and she felt them wrapping around her, penetrating her soul. With every ounce of courage, Jess envisioned her fears coalescing into a brilliant light. The memories of self-doubt transformed into a scarlet blaze bursting forth from her core. It grew brighter with each conscious breath, consuming the shadows that sought to engulf her. Feel it, Jess. The guardian's voice boomed, a chorus of strength and belief layered within it. This is your moment. Ava's figure flickered, a ghostly plea in her eyes. I'm here, Jess. Fight. Don't let them take you. And in that moment of connection, Jess felt a mighty surge, a power that defied the shadows. It charged through her veins, transforming her fear from shackles to wings. The darkness shrieked, twisting away in terror as the light blinded it. Enough. The creature howled, its voice laced with venom. The very fabric of the forest trembled. The whispers faded, replaced by a roaring silence as Jess glowed like a beacon. The guardian smiled, pride shimmering in its eyes. But just as Jess began to feel the weight of victory, a surge of cold washed over her, dark tendrils striking back as if the forest would not let its prey escape so easily. No! She gasped, but the tendrils clawed her down again, anger crackling, winds howling, gale-force waves of disbelief tossed her about. They would not allow her to break free. In the heart of this chaos, she heard a sound that made her blood freeze. It was Ava, a tortured cry echoing through the midst. Jess! Don't leave me! Panic surged through Jess. Ava! She reached out, desperation clawing at her heart. I want to abandon you. But the dark laughter returned, chilling and sharp. You will choose, Jess. Your friend or your salvation. A sense of betrayal sliced through her. What do you want from me? She shouted, clenching her fists, the light flickering. Only your fear, came the haunting whisper. Only your choices will decide who will survive this night. Jess felt lost, overwhelmed by the weight of the shadows pressing against her. Tears stung her eyes, but she couldn't afford the luxury of defeat. Not now. Choose, the creature demanded, its voice rising, causing the forest to quake. Inside, Jess felt the struggle between love and fear waging a war more brutal than any physical battle. Her heart raced, each beat a reminder. It was a question of loyalty, sacrifice, love, and suddenly she knew. She couldn't let darkness win. I choose both! She screamed, raw defiance coursing through her. Everything went silent, as if the world paused to take breath. What would happen next? Would her choice save them both or doom them forever? The forest held its breath, darkness swirling in anticipation, waiting for her next move. The quiet hung in the air, thick and heavy, broken only by the rapid thumping of Jess's heart. She stood at a precipice, suspended between the shadows, and the light a living embodiment of her choice. The darkness seemed to pulse, straining against the boundaries of her courage, desperate to reclaim what it had lost. Then, without warning, the dark tendrils recoiled. A force rippled through the forest, as if the two opposing energies had clashed in an explosive confrontation. Shadows hissed, their certainty faltering, and for a brief moment, Jess felt the swell of triumph. But that feeling was quickly cloaked by an even deeper urgency. Ava! She cried again, casting her breath into the void that surrounded her. The shadows trembled, and for the first time, they seemed to retreat. The forest, once a realm of despair, flickered with a shimmer of possibility. Branches swayed as gusts of wind twisted through the clearing, carrying the echoes of her steadfastness. Together, Jess. We're together. Ava's voice found its way through the turmoil, and Jess concentrated on the warmth wrapped around her heart like a protective cocoon. In that moment, Jess realized the truth. Fear need not be conquered alone, but faced together. And as she stood resolute, the Guardian's presence felt more solid, a powerful ally bolstering her resolve. Channel your light, the Guardian urged. Let it thrive on your bond. Jess took a deep breath, envisioning how that bond could banish the shadows for good. Her light abruptly intensified, expanding outward until it enveloped both her and Ava. A brilliant aura burst forth, illuminating hidden paths and summoning the courage of spirits long stifled by dread. Yet from deep within the thrumming forest, a sinister rumble erupted. You dare challenge us? The creature's voice lashed out, venomous and furious. It is not mere light that drives away darkness. It is the very fear that fuels it. You cannot escape your own soul. A shiver raced down Jess's spine. The truth behind those words struck at her core. The tendrils lunged again with vengeance, and Jess felt the shadows scraping at her edges. It was not enough simply to exist in this light. She had to embrace every part of herself, especially the parts she feared the most. I am not just my fears, she shouted back, clenching her fists tighter. I am everything. My weakness, my hope, my pain, and my love. The world around her strained, the air crackling as the beacon of her resolve washed over the lingering darkness. Jess's heart pulsed in rhythm with her words, creating waves that seemed to tear through the fabric of the night, but the shadows morphed, dissipating only to take on new forms. They grew sharp and jagged, a monstrous embodiment of her deepest regrets, her most painful memories. Each lashing tendril bore the faces of those she had lost, those she might still lose. "No!" she screamed, struggling to stand her ground. "You will not consume me." And then Jess looked into the heart of the monster. "I choose to fight," she declared, her voice rising with fervor. "I will fight for Ava and everyone I hold dear." With her decision reverberating through the air, Jess summoned every ounce of her inner strength. The light exploded around her, forging an armor of brilliance against the darkness. The forest responded, shifting and trembling as if shifting into another realm. But then, a chilling whisper slithered through the air, curling around her like smoke. "Prepare yourself, Jess. Your fight has just begun, and the true enemy lurks closer than you think." Jess's stomach dropped, a sense of impending dread pooling inside her. Who was hiding in the darkness, waiting for the moment to strike? The air grew thick with tension, and the darkness, once her enemy, seemed to dance before her, teasing her with uncertainty. What had she unleashed? The ground trembled beneath Jess's feet, the very essence of the forest vibrating with unease. Shadows twisted like serpents, crawling closer, probing for her weaknesses. Each flicker of darkness seemed to whisper her secrets, dredging up memories she'd rather not confront. Despite her resolve, fear wedged itself deeper within her, clawing at her confidence. "Ava!" she shouted, the name a sacred incantation against the encroaching dread. The air thickened, electric and cold, as the shadows coiled tighter around her. "Let her go!" The words erupted from Jess's throat, a battle cry laced with desperation. If this monster fed on her fears, she needed to shield the bright flame of hope that Ava represented. But as she steadied herself, a new dread washed over her. Ava was still out there, somewhere in this abyss, the very heart of the darkness that wanted to consume them both. How could she stand strong if her tether was snatched away? Jess fought against that thought, focusing instead on the warmth from their bond, letting it seep into her like a lifeline. Just then, the monstrous shadows recoiled, as if repelled by her conviction. Jess felt the rush of energy surge around her, building strength as she breathed in the light. It coiled around her like a shield, firm yet supple. Her heart pounded in synchrony, a rhythmic battle drum against the encroaching dark. Then came the laugh, sharp, icy, and echoing from all directions. "You think your love can save you?" the darkness crooned maliciously. "You'll find love is but a flickering flame in the storm, Jess." Fury ignited within her. "My love is my strength. It burns brighter than your darkness." She plunged her hands forward, the radiant light extending out like a protective wave. For a heartbeat, everything felt still, time suspended in the face of the brewing chaos. The shadows flickered but did not vanish. Instead, they contorted, twisting into more grotesque forms, appearing as people she knew, faces from her past. Friends who had left, family members lost, even the fleeting glances from strangers who had shown her kindness. Heart pounding, Jess stumbled back. "You're not real. You're just a fragment of what I feared." "Real enough to cause you pain," the shadows hissed, and their laughter echoed, merging into a sorrowful wail that threatened to tear at her sanity. As the cacophony of voices rose, Jess couldn't shut them out. She covered her ears, but the noise became louder, drowning out her own determined heartbeat. They were all her failures, pulling her further into despair. "Jess, listen!" Ava's voice suddenly cut through the tumult. "Remember why you're fighting. We're not alone in this. Stand tall together." Jess inhaled deeply, the sound of Ava's voice anchoring her as the memories swirled. Images of their laughter, their shared dreams, and the warmth of friendship filtered through the dark. Slowly, that light surged within her, stoking the fire of determination that she needed to combat the suffocating shadows. Focusing on that warmth, Jess raised her arms high, calling forth every ounce of light within her. "I am my pain, but I refuse to let it define me. I am my love, and it binds the darkness in chains." At that moment, A brilliant beam exploded from her palms, shattering the shadows swirling around her. The grotesque faces contorted, screaming in rage as they were obliterated by her light. Jess felt an exhilarating rush, an intoxicating cocktail of fear and power that surged through her veins. The monstrous shadows battered against her shields, but she held steadfast. But the moment of triumph was short-lived. As the last remnants of that darkness flickered out, something ominous shifted in the air. It hadn't fully retreated. Something more sinister was lurking beneath the chaos, waiting for the right moment to pounce. "What have I awakened?" Jess whispered, dread gnawing at her resolve as a deeper, more sinister darkness slithered from the depths of the forest, enveloping her in its cold embrace. The shadows whispered again. "This was only the beginning, Jess. The real game is just starting, and the stakes are far higher than you ever imagined." Jess's blood ran cold as she realized, in horror, that the true enemy had merely been observing, biding its time. What had she truly unleashed? Her heart raced. A new, deeper fight lay ahead. Jess stood at the edge of the clearing, her skin prickling as the whispers of the forest rose again, like a swell of ominous waves. The shadows flickered around her, reminding her of everything she had just fought to dismiss, but fear was no longer her master. With every slow breath, she summoned the strength that lay deep within her, a bright beacon in the oppressive darkness. Together, Jess, Ava's voice echoed in her heart, a sweet reminder that fueled her courage. It meant more than just survival. It meant fighting back not only for herself but for all those who had been swallowed by these woods, for every soul lost seeking their own way home. She couldn't let fear hijack her spirit now. Striding boldly into the depths of the entwining gloom, Jess felt the cold tendrils reaching for her, but she knew now not to succumb. "I am not afraid," she declared fiercely, gripping the light within her tightly. "You don't scare me." The forest shrieked in response, branches thrashing above like angry fists, attempting to dissuade her resolve. But the shadows shivered as her voice rang like a clarion. The echo of her defiance resounded in the air, dulling the chaos clamoring against her. She stepped forward, the light radiating as if the essence of her defiance had birthed bright wings beneath her soul. The cold laughter fell flat, giving way to unexpected silence, as if even the trees draped in murky shadows held their breath. With urgency, Jess scanned the ground, remembering the legends of the lost hikers. Their voices merging into painful screams, she could picture them trapped, still robbed of their peace. "Ava! We'll rescue them together." Throwing her head back defiantly, she felt embers of warmth blaze brighter with every step she took into the quagmire. Suddenly shadows surged again, but this time, Jess met them with determination. "You've taken too much already," she shouted, raising her hands forward as if she could physically push them back. "You can't hold their souls. Not anymore." In response, dark figures began to emerge, twisted shapes of those lost in the forest. Sad eyes met hers, filled with regret. "Help us," they murmured, their voices strained and thin, layers of despair clinging to their words. Jess's heart raced, but she steeled herself. She could do this. Reaching inward again, she conjured up the warmth of friendship, the bonds of love that could break chains and free them from this nightmare. "I won't let you take any more," she screamed defiantly, summoning all of her power. The light burst forth in a radiant wave, sweeping through the darkness and illuminating their faces. The shadows screamed, thrashing violently against Jess's light. With each flicker, a lost soul found its voice, materializing into bright forms that drifted blissfully toward freedom. The grip on her heart began to ease. This was the pact of the brave, and she felt the radiant realm of the forest shift around her. Ava's glowing spirit joined the throng, a shine of hope that glimmered in the storm's aftermath. With a final surge, Jess turned to confront the last, looming shadow before her. It towered, fearsome and insatiable. "You dare defy me?" Its voice dripped with contempt. The chilling air thickened dangerously, but Jess held tight. "You have no power here," she declared, pressing forward. Just as the monstrous figure lunged, Jess embraced the warmth swirling within her, the love she had for every soul in the forest, for Ava, and even for those she had lost. "I choose light. I choose love." With fervor, she released it like a lance, striking at the heart of darkness. In an instant, the forest burst with brilliant colors, illuminating the night. Light enveloped the shadows, obliterating their twisted forms, until only silence remained. The wood sighed, as if shedding the despair that had clung for decades, and the laughter that had once haunted her became a soft, melodic whisper. There, amid the residual glow, Jess and Ava stood side by side, relieved and triumphant. The lost souls hovered around them, grateful, their forms transforming into bright sparks of light that floated gently away. "You did it, Jess," Ava said, her voice firmly steady. "You made a choice that not only saved us, but countless others." Staring into the calm that had finally settled over the woods, Jess felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The trees, once grotesque and threatening, now felt like ancient sentinels, bathed in warmth. "We did it," she replied, a gentle smile lighting her face. Together. As dawn broke, the sky transformed into a canvas of pastel hues. The forest, once drenched in shadows, welcomed life anew. Jess held Ava's hand tight as she sparkled with joy and relief. They turned back one last time to give the woods a farewell and acknowledgement of what they had fought against and what they had reclaimed. "May none of you haunt these paths again," she whispered softly, knowing they would not be forgotten but cherished instead. With spirits entwined in resolve and newfound strength, they walked onward, ready to face the light beyond the trees, forever changed by the depths they had traversed. They had tasted the darkness, but risen fiercely into the dawn. Now, as the adventure winds down, it's your turn. Don't miss out on what comes next. You need to subscribe now to the channel. Hit that red button to ensure you're ready for the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now. Feed the algorithm and help keep our community thriving. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories. What did you think of the ending? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. Only true fans know how important it is to support our channel through these actions.